Good afternoon. Tom Ginn here, G Force. G is for gratitude. I believe gratitude powers our potential. It allows us to look at the world in a different perspective, gives us positive, gives us faith with certainty. So gratitude is, I believe, one of the strongest principles we can apply in our lives. These are principles I use in my day to day. And I encourage people to look deep into gratitude because you can't hold a negative thought and a positive thought at the same time. Gratitude helps deal with your difficulties, your challenges. Gratitude brings appreciation for those that you love. It brings a deeper gratitude and appreciation in every area of your life. So I started this program over 2 years ago. These principles I apply in my life. I use them in my coaching practice, and it's made a big difference. And today I'm really grateful for my guest that I'll be bringing in. We'll get started in just a minute. We'll be right back. I am so grateful today. That's my corporate sponsor, ASEA. But today is a very special day. We're going to have some little bit of an entertainment today as well, besides interview with a very special lady that I met a couple of years ago through, I believe, probably a networking event when COVID hit. And she's a wonderful woman, great soul. You're going to enjoy today's interview. And and my guest today is Phyllis Caldron. She is the author of this book, Stop Sitting and Stand, Phyllis Caldron. That title alone should bring some attention to everybody. We're going to talk about her mission, her journey, her purpose of this book. But today, before we get into the interview or the talking, we got some entertainment. So I'm going to bring in Phyllis. Welcome, Phyllis.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, what we're going to do a little outside the norm is you're going to entertain us a little bit, but just share before we get going a little bit, where are you from, a little personal information. We'll dive a little bit deeper here in a minute, but just, where you're at and what you do.
Yeah, I'm from Chicago. I'm in Chicago, South Side. And can you hear me okay?
Yes, we'll got a little bit of a bandwidth issue. We'll just work through it here.
Okay.
So we want you to focus on, so what are you going to, so you're in the Chicago area.
Yeah.
And you're a accomplished violinist, teacher, author, mother, wife, all those great things.
Yes.
But I would just like you to, what are you going to play for us here in opening up?
Well, I'm just going to play a snippet of Carl Baum's Sarabande in G minor, just a snippet, and then I'm going to segue into a hymn, Let Your Light Shine Down.
Well, you know what? I am really excited because we're bringing some real sophistication to G-Force today. So I'm going to let you go. There you go. It's all yours. Oh, wow. When it comes to music talent, I have none, but I appreciate those that have that gift. Then you have a gift, and that just the quality of your playing, what it takes to do what you do, actually wells my eyes up a little bit. So I'm excited to have you on today because it's gratitude. So
Thank you.
um, yeah. So how long have you been playing?
My mom is a piano teacher. She was my first teacher. So piano was actually my first instrument, but it was in the fourth grade that I started the violin with Suzuki instruction. And then from there, I got into a private instruction with a great Russian teacher, the Russian style. And it took over everything. And that's what I ended up majoring in music on, the violin for violin performance. But, there were a lot of things along the way and I addressed some of that in the book, with regard to the whole music piece and everything, where I was stuck because I had a dream of, being the first Black woman in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And, I had very like big dreams. And, I would fight, uh, you know, the thoughts, in the beginning that would get in my way when people were saying, you can't do that. And because I had people along the way that were like, no, you're not good enough. And then this and that. But there were some things along the way where, and voices where I allowed them to get to me that caused me to become stuck. And so, but, I persevered through those things. And today I own my own private music studio where I teach violin, piano, viola. I have a couple cello students and early childhood music. And I've been able to now also hire a couple teachers to come and help me because it's, my studio has grown. So yeah, I'm the owner of A Touch of Classical Plus, and it's a home-based studio and I've been teaching since the early 2004 is when I started that. Yeah, but I've been playing for a long time, so since the fourth grade.
You said something, Phyllis. Myself being a personal development coach and understand that we have dreams, and we need to have dreams. We need to have things that they're so big and so powerful that I know I have a big dream when people say you can't do it or you're crazy, and I think you encountered that right early,
Yes.
and then we have to deal with our internal talking that,
Yep.
and I always like to, because your vision, your purpose, and your why, I think, is the driving force to get you through the chatter that we give ourselves, gets us past what the environment gives us negatively, right? I mean, we're filled all day long with people say you can't do something, and that could be a lot of different factors. So, what I always like to start my interviews out with: what is your why, your purpose, and what are you grateful for today?
Wow. My why is centered on giving back to the children. It's all for me. It's all about the children, the youth, and teaching them and their parents what I've been given in the way of music, and and beyond that, what I've been given because of Christ. That's my firm foundation. First and foremost, and what I've learned and still learning in the way of giving love. Um, and so for me, the expression of love is through my music and teaching students and their parents how to come out of their stuck. Because I think all of us have areas in which we're stuck. And so as I've learned and am still learning how to grow from that, I'm able to teach and help to transform and shape, their minds and even their parents' minds. And so that's part of my why.
You mentioned something, and the amount of time I've known you, and some things you've shared in the past, and your faith is very significant. And I always ask this question: who's your greatest influencer in your life? Now, that could be one person, that could be a wide range thing, but what were the influences that helped you
Wow.
see yourself, see your fullest potential, your truest gifts? And because many times we have them, but we need validation. Who were those people that really saw you early and encouraged you when you had the other influences? And of course, our own negative talks
Mhm.
can cause our dreams to fall apart. So just share a little bit about
Yeah,
those
I think number one, my mother she was always in my corner from the time, I began music lessons to the time where I had my messy period. She was always there. So my mom and then um, my sister Gloria was always there pushing me. She was actually the one who called me home, right? And when I say called me home, I mean called me, back to a relationship with God, through Christ. She was the one who, um, was always there, even when I didn't want to hear, because she would always call me talking about Jesus. And why are you always calling me talking about the Bible this, the Bible that? That was my response. But she shared Isaiah 59, verses 1 and 2. The arm of the Lord is not too short to save, but your sin, our sin is what keeps us afar from God. And something about that verse just hit me, and it convicted me literally on my knees, and I dropped and I just let it all out. And so she is my other influencer, just with the word, and she still goes hard on me even today. And then I guess the third person is my husband, Christian. He has, just, since day one, he's a man I prayed for, and God answered. When I met him, all those things I prayed for in a husband, it was him. I didn't know what he would look like. I didn't know what nationality he would be. I didn't know because I didn't pray for any of that. I just prayed that he be a man of God, that he, want a lot of children, that he would like music the way I do, and he would like to dance salsa, because I like to dance salsa. And and so when God presented me with him, we met at a wedding, and when I looked at him, I knew that was him. Yeah. And then I have to also say my son, our son, he's 23 now, but I'm telling you, we can learn so much through our children. And ever since he was little, he's been wise beyond his years. And even at 23, if you hear him speak about, whether it's the Bible or music or, whatever it is, there's wisdom underneath, his what he's talking about. And I've learned a lot from him as well.
You said something in the beginning here, your passion and your mission to work with these kids to tap into the gifts they have, or their desires to conquer an instrument, or they have a love for you. There's a reason why they get there. And how important is that you have you said something about the parents, is working with the parents, giving the parents the resources to help their child believe in themselves, because it could be that one negative thing. Oh, gee, are you really serious? Do you really think you're going to be able to play in the high school band? Some negative thought can squash a person's dream, right?
Yes.
So I
Absolutely.
think that's as important. Your role is not just bringing the talents and gifts, being the role model, being that example, being the disciplinarian, the one that's demonstrating what hard work pays off, what it looks like, right?
Mhm.
Because you're the end result of what
Absolutely.
we want them to see beyond you, right? You're here, and
Yes.
you know there's more, right? There's always more, and
Yeah.
I think that's important. What you said is that so many times those closest to us, sometimes their intentions aren't to hurt you. Let's just put it that way. Okay. And I think that's so important that people hear
Right.
that, is that there are so many stories I've heard like yours that they didn't listen to that, and they went and pursued their purpose and passion, and then they found somebody that believed in them, and then they blossomed. And I think if we can get that parent to be
Yeah.
the fertilizer, it'll go a long way. In the music
Absolutely.
arena, in the music arena, those that trained you, taught beside your mom, who were some of those people says, you got something here? Who were they?
Um, I mean, my very first teacher, Professor Mark Zinger, he he was definitely. I mean, he was my first teacher and set up my foundation for, with the technique and all of that. Um, but I think later, Mr. Glimpf, Mr. Joseph Glimpf, he was, when I was in high school and college, he was my teacher. I actually followed him to. He was on a faculty of North Park College here in Chicago. It's North Park University now, but I followed him there, because I just wanted to continue to study with him. But he was, he pushed me and challenged me greatly, and then I'll never forget when I was at another college, Elizabeth Metesky, and she comes from a long line of great violinists. Nathan Milstein was one of her teachers. So there's that lineage as well. But she was so encouraging to me as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing, because this whole program is really about to bring different level of awareness. Having success in anything in life, in relationship or faith or businesses or whatever, it's usually there's somebody that believes in you, and you know let's learn to encourage people and not discourage, because we all have a gift, and we don't need it squashed by our own chatter, and then of course the small chatter that's around us in life. Um, so let's sort of move along here. We met a couple of years ago. That's been a blessing, and so we won't get into all the details around that. But when I saw that you were writing a book, and based on what I've been doing, I says I got to help her get this message out. Just before I even got into the book, I knew your spirit, your smile, your energy, your positive thinking. It's something that people need to hear. But in the book, you what? Let's talk about your book. Let's talk about the title. Stop Sitting and Stand. What's the premise around the title of your book?
Yeah. It's the book was written with the church in mind. There was a time, it was a 2017, where I looked around and there was so much stuck, in the room, myself included. And the stuck was, people always complaining or complacent. So, they were very complacent, and there was no growth. There was just, this no movement, and it caused me to choose. I had to make a choice. Am I going to be in the camp that sits and complains and remains complacent, or am I going to stand up and help? How can I help? Because when we are part of the kingdom, right? Our job is to, help move, and we're supposed to be shakers, right? And carriers of the light, and seasoned with salt, and all of those things. And so I decided to stand up and, how can I help? How can I help the leadership? How can I help the worship team? I was part of the worship ministry, and they needed help. So how could I help? So, yeah. And so what happened was, one day I prayed. I was in my bedroom, and I dropped down on my knees and just prayed, God, surely there is more to you than what I currently know. I want to know the deeper things of you. And, he started to show me those things. He started to show me things in ways that I hadn't known before, and I've always been a dreamer, but I started dreaming more, and hearing seeing his voice in my dreams. And so all the things that were happening, I started to detail them in my blog. I decided first to get a blog, and my cousin helped me with my blog, faithfulmelodies.com. And there was a piece on the blog that I wrote called Stop Sitting and Stand, because I was so angry with what I was seeing that it just prompted me to write, and I put that piece on my blog. And that was the premise of the book. That piece was what caused me to write the book. And so I identify areas of stuck in my own life, as well as the stuck in the people I saw around me. And with permission, I talked about some of those in the book, but I spoke a lot about my own life, and how I recognized, first of all, that I was stuck, and then what got me there, because it's important to understand, you always got to go to the root of a situation.
Yeah.
And then, and then the help that we need to get up so we can stand and get going. So,
yeah. You said something there, myself studying, I've been in coaching and for, my wife and I, about 8 years, really understanding our belief systems and those type of things. And we see we see ourselves stuck, and sometimes we don't understand why we're even stuck until somebody brings a different level. Am I getting some feedback there on your side?
No.
Okay. But so it really comes down to awareness. You recognize you were stuck, and you started seeing other people around you, right? Stuck.
Yeah.
What was your methodology to bring a different light to them? Because it's something you just can't point out. I think we lighten the dark room with light. What was your light? How would you see yourself helping them, I guess, is my question.
I always like to look at how Jesus did something. And I know I've not always been successful with that, but I think for me, I always try to listen to the person. I let them talk and listen to them, and to see how I should, or what I should say. Or maybe it's that I say nothing at all. So it's just, and then the other thing is just understanding their love language. That's the other thing.
You're saying something very profound, very, very profound, is our voice becomes stronger when we hear other people's voice first.
Exactly.
And We didn't script this. We didn't talk about any talking points whatsoever. So I think the universe delivers what we need to say when we need to say it. I created this. This is a Tomism or aganism, whatever you want to call it, through a client says, I got a voice I want to share to the world. And I says, to get your voice heard in the world, you've got to listen to their voice first. And then when you speak, you have power. And that's a nature. And I think that's what Christ did. He just didn't go out and preached. He was be still and know, causing people to slow down, reflect, see those type of things. So when you started talking, I go, where did we didn't script any of this. We didn't talk about any bullet points. So what you said is profound. This is how we make a difference in the world to get people unstick, is recognize their pain.
Yeah.
Because if you just start dumping solutions on them, do you see me? Do you hear? And do you care?
Exactly.
And I think what you said is so profound. It just blew me away today. And then I'm rolling this script across here, and it was totally in alignment with what you're saying. Unscripted. Right. So I know the universe, God works in a very, very orchestrated way.
Yes. Yeah, and when we're close to him, when we know his voice, and when we're in situations with another person that we're trying to help, he will give us the words to say, in that moment. And that's how it's been for me when I found myself, talking to somebody who's stuck, and sometimes it's like, I don't know what to do. How can I help you? I'm praying to God, as I'm talking, how can I help this person? I'm not like a trained psychologist or anything like that. It's like, what do I say? And he always has given me the words and sometimes the scripture, and one thing that I'm careful to do, especially with a person who is not, is not equipped in the word, is beat them on the head with the Bible. You never want to do that.
No.
You always, listen to where they're coming from, and put yourself in their shoes. I think people would be, a lot of a lot of stuff would go away if people would stop looking at a situation and then judging it, or looking at a person in their situation and judging it. Put yourself in their shoes, and because everybody has a story behind where they are in their life. That homeless person was not always homeless. There's a story behind what got them there. We have to stop, judging people. When you see something, that person who's holding the gun and wanting to rob you wasn't always like that. There's a story behind there. We have to learn how to get at the root instead of just, wanting to shoot somebody down, or, whether it's with a gun or with our words.
Yeah.
So.
From the time I met you, I think your smile is a magnet. You got a beautiful smile, great eyes. Your energy comes through you, your soul and the essence of you is coming through you. And I think that, people say, Tom, how do you stay so positive? Well, first of all, I work on it. I go to gratitude. I don't have always great days. I have disappointing and things happen in my life like anybody else's. But I learned this a long time ago. Gratitude really makes you appreciative no matter what the circumstances in. Some of it you don't have control of. It could be a car wreck and then you're hospitalized, or somebody's hurt. There's a place of gratitude that takes you out of that, I call the spiral. Instead, because when you go to a place of gratitude, you become not the victim, but you become victorious. It gives you the power that you need to work through it, through gratitude. And I call gratitude the gateway to love.
Yeah, I think with gratitude, when we operate from that place of gratitude, we will get unstuck. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So share a little bit about some in this book. I love what and I believe this is true, is that God's word, God's principles are non-man made. And that's a law, a spiritual law. And that's where people are stuck too. They're out of, some people would call it sin, all whatever. And that it's not always a negative. Is you're just off the mark. You're off 1 degree in maybe a thinking or a belief system. And we all go through it.
Yeah.
I love the way you've written your book. You're relating back to scripture, because a pastor friend of mine, it should be more about you. Now I'm talking my story here, but he said one thing that you'll learn, that the world and the things around us and the beliefs and everything that we get inundated with, from media to other faiths or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
He says, remember this, Tom. I'll ask you a question first. Are all truths in the Bible? And let person answer it. And he says, no, not all truths are in the Bible, but all things could be tested against the Bible for truth. Because the answers are there in other words. So that was a big awakening for me years and years ago, and that caused me to maybe start getting out of my own way, my own beliefs, because the universal laws, that could be the physical laws, they're not man-made, right? Spiritual laws are not man-made.
Right.
And so, and you're a spiritual person. That's what I love about you. That's what radiates. So in this book, what would be one point that you might want to expand on today? Because we could spend a whole day just going through your book. Is there any one thing that you would like to share, a chapter or a point of view?
I think chapter 2, what causes you're stuck, is I think understanding what causes our stuck will help us to get unstuck. And so in chapter 2, I talk about the symptoms of being stuck. And I list 5. Well, first I talk about how, stuck comes from clutter. And clutter is in chapter 3. I talk about clutter in chapter 3, but I talk about 5 areas: complacent, I'm really distracted, being disconnected, being sentimental. And I know that last one, I think sometimes it trips people up, because the sentimental that we think of, it's a good thing. Like, our the inheritance from our grandparents, collection of stuff, and we hold on to that because it has sentimental value. But the sentimentality that I talk about in the book has to do with a state of mind that causes us to become an idol. It's an idol. But let me just read this one part where I talk about the sentimentality. And how this came about, I was praying in the kitchen one day, and as I was praying, I heard this phrase, sin, there's sentimentality in sin. And I had to go and study that out, because I was like, what? How can sentimentality be a sin? And so what I write is, let me see, where should I start? Okay. Yeah, it's good to remember the old days, to hold on to the good and not so suitable, and use that to teach, train, and transform the present. Talking about the old days with a dependence on the past rears the idol's head of sentimentality. Maybe that wasn't a good place to start. I was just referencing how a pastor was talking about like being sentimental in his sermon, talking about the good old days. And we always talk about the good old days, right? But if we hold on to the good old days and that's it, somehow that can become sentimental, the sentimentality that is sinful, because we're relying on something that is of the past. So and there's a danger in that. And so the dictionary talks about sentimentality as a quality or state of being sentimental, especially excess. And that's where what I'm trying to get to. And so here's a few quotes that talk about that. This one is from James Baldwin. Sentimentality, the ostentatious parody of excesses and spurious emotions, is the mark of dishonesty, the inability to feel. And then another one is from Timothy Keller. Love without truth is sentimentality. It supports and affirms us, but keeps us in denial about our flaws. Truth without love is harshness. It gives us information, but in such a way that we cannot really. So, yeah. And then I talk about in scripture, because I always like to say, well, where in scripture is sentimentality a sin? And then I reference like Judges 9, where, you can read that or read about it in the book.
What you're saying here, Phyllis, is supporting what I just mentioned a minute ago, is all the things that we're talking about, that staying in the past can get us stuck, even though it was good. But we're meant to come on this earth to grow.
Yeah.
And so we can get stuck in that sentimentality, pardon my language, I can't even speak. So we get stuck in that, and it doesn't allow us to grow, because our desire, our innate beingness is to grow and expand. So we can't stay in the past. We can learn from it. We can cherish that values that it gave you, but there's more.
Exactly.
There's more. And we can't be a light staying stuck. We got to be the light, right?
Right.
It's Absolutely. We grow. Personally, I think this is a personal story. As we grow, it transforms itself to other people. We impact and influence people because we're growing.
Yeah.
If we stay we talked about it early, the circle of negativity, people are staying, they talk about the same complaints every week. You meet at the Bible study, they, how things go. And it's the same story they had last week, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To one degree or another, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think your book, I'm excited to really dive into it, because it's deeper than just words. I always like to bring attention to people that most people read the words, but they never study the words.
Right. That's
they
why,
read
yeah.
Them, but they don't study the words.
Yeah, that's so important. Yeah.
You mentioned clutter.
Yes.
I just going to throw this out here, and it's just something I've learned, and I'm sure when you expound on your perspective on it, but a client turned me on to a spiritual leader named Dr. Miles Monroe. And he talked about the power of a vision. And I think what you're talking about, the power of your vision, is your dreams, your aspiration, your purpose. It's clear as you're looking at a picture. You close your eyes, you can see it, you can feel it. It's emotional, and it's your essence of who you are. Mm-hmm. Most people don't know how to get there, and that's the problem. Yeah. But when you have that vision, just your vision, your dream to play, you didn't let your chatter. You found a way to get through your chatter, and you pursued, and you've accomplished something you probably, looking back as a child, go, wow, I did it and more, really. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. So when we have a clear vision, you get rid of clutter.
Yeah.
And that clutter isn't objects. That's part of it. You know, objects can create clutter and confusion and chaos. It's in my way, and I got to clean the house and clutter, right? But
Mhm.
clutter, when you have a vision, it makes your life with no clutter, because you only bring those things into your life to support what? Your vision. Who you search with,
Yeah.
what books you read, how do you look at the world? Clutter is not just a physical thing. Would you agree?
I
Mental.
agree. Yeah. There's spiritual clutter. I think physical clutter will cause us to be spiritually stuck.
Yeah.
I talk about that in chapter 3 of the book.
Yeah. And another point here, you're talking about triggers. What did you come to find out? I think that's through awareness, talking triggers. What triggers your feelings, positive or negatively? You want to expand on that?
Yeah. Um, like the triggers. What chapter? Hold on.
Oh, I just went through it here. I had something highlighted. We'll see if I can find it again. Chapter 10, 3 triggers of stuck.
Okay. Hold on. So, yeah, the three triggers of stucks. When you're sitting the wrong way, um, so in this chapter, I identify these three triggers as the inhibition trigger. It's the feeling that inhibition is a feeling that makes one self-conscious and unable to act relaxed and natural. And I give an example of that when I was a little girl. My sister, the one I referenced earlier, who was my biggest influencer, well, when we were little, she would always make fun of me because, when we would dance, people would call me stiff because I would be so self-conscious that, I wouldn't move like how everybody else was moving. And I mean, and plus as a girl, I was just so shy anyway. But the fact that she would call me stiff, it inhibited me from moving. And I always held on to that. So like even as I got older and like, in high school or, even older, I would, when I would be in situations where, there was dance involved, I would want to dance. I would look at people dancing and want to do it, but I would just sit back because of that voice from long ago. You're so stiff,
Yeah.
And so that's
What
one
that,
trick.
because it's really I saw one of your previous chapters referenced it, is don't be critical to yourself. We're right.
Yeah.
We beat ourselves up. Oh, I can't dance as good at it. Maybe I shouldn't dance. Right. We're our own worst enemies.
Yeah.
And we worry about what other people think.
And that was me. I would always worry about what other people think. And that made me stuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other trigger, is the restriction trigger. And this one is a limiting condition. And this one runs deep. Restriction can be physical, mental, social, or emotional. Constraints can be placed upon you by another person or by your own self. So that's and then the last one is the distraction trigger. Distraction is anything that prevents someone from giving full attention to something or someone else. Another definition is extreme agitation of the mind or emotions. So those are the three triggers.
Wonderful. I'm glad we're having these conversations because, our whole method today is to express and show your depth and we all have challenges. We all have those doubting days and
Yeah.
non-belief days and poor me days, and right. I mean, there isn't anybody that's immune from that.
Yeah.
But just knowing, you can make decisions.
Absolutely.
You
It's
have a
always
choice.
about a choice. Yeah.
That's free will.
Yeah.
God has given us the ability to have free will, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even the free will of poor me, he's really giving you the free will. So hopefully that will get your attention that there is a different way to think. Sometimes we need to experience it, right?
Yeah, I think our experiences definitely help to shape us, and when we learn from them, it helps us. They help us to get unstuck.
Yeah. And when we demonstrate it, this is what I come to believe, and is people, when we improve everybody, I said it earlier, when we improve everybody around us improves some degree. Even today's conversation, we never know, and I always encourage people to tag and share this out because I get a lot of replays on it, and I'm going to plant the seed for anybody that's coming in or watching us on replay. We're going to have some more music played at the end, right? You agree to that?
Sure.
Okay. That's the marketing hook. The rest of the story, right, is coming, but no, the entertainment. But I'm enjoying our conversation. It speaks to me. Your message speaks to me. And the reason it speaks, I believe, it just falls what we call universal laws, non-man-made. Physical laws are non-man-made, as well as the spiritual laws are non-man-made, and I think that's when we know truth, right? We know
Yes.
false. We know false when we top it and reflect. So, what are some of the things besides your book? What are some of your dreams and your goals? The things you're hoping to come away with? Let's talk about the book. Who should read this book?
I think the book initially, I wrote it for the church, but it is a book that is for anyone who is stuck.
Yeah.
And so my prayer has always been that the readers of this book would walk away, even if it's just one thing they took from the book that would help to change and transform them and to help them to get up from their stuck position. And I think, and even it's the youth. This book can also be read by those in a youth ministry. So yeah, this book is for, definitely, I wrote it to the church, but it's for any individual who is stuck. And there are questions in the book, so I challenge you to sit down with your journal and write out your response to those questions. Like, one thing that I always do, like even when I'm reading a Bible study, is to just take time to ask the questions, and answer the questions that are being asked in the text, and then write them down. Because I think when you write down your dream or your questions, or your prayers, whatever it is, if you write it down, you're going to see it better, and then somehow it's going to manifest. But we have to start by writing down those thoughts or those questions or those dreams or whatever it is.
That is so important, what you said, just from my experience of the influences in me, is that your pen is power. It changes how we think. It opens creativity. It gives us the ability to look. We think in pictures. So when we write, we're thinking pictures, right?
Yes.
So so important. I just put up how to get your book, right?
Yeah, Mrs. Phyllis Caldron.com. Yeah.
Yeah. And then your Instagram I put up. And what can they find on Instagram?
Well, on Instagram, that's a collection of my what I'm doing musically as well. So, and also my fan page is on Facebook. It's just simply my name, Mrs. Phyllis Caldron. There, I list everything that I do. So, I'm a music teacher. I perform on the violin, and I'm an author. So that's what you'll see on my fan page and even on Instagram. So I share videos. I share videos about my students, what they're doing. I'm excited about my student chamber ensemble that consists of students ages 7 to 15, and they're performing out. They've had their first taste of gigging. They actually made money at a wedding. They played at a wedding back in June, and it was their first. So we got together and they learned wedding music. So I share about that. I share about my thoughts. That I write about on my blog. I create a video and we'll share it out there. And I do have a YouTube channel as well that it's brand new. That I just created it, but it's my name, Phyllis Calderon. That's my YouTube.
Okay, wonderful.
So those are all the
We
ways.
want to just get, have everybody share this out. The message that you're sharing is important for people to know. Tag and share people. We never know what one word, one thought, one idea can make the difference in somebody's life. Get them unstuck. Start exploring that there is a way out of being stuck, no matter where we are. There's always a path, a positive path to go. And I encourage everybody to look at this book. It goes deeper than just some words. If you really start applying these principles and do them study, and I'm excited to know you, honored to know you. Your presence, your essence of who you are radiates through you. And I think that's a testament of the work you've done for yourself, on yourself.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah. So with that all said, you didn't expect this one until I brought you on. Do you have a piece that you would like to play? And that will be our closing. Do you have any parting thoughts? And then we'll just part with a short little piece that you may want to play.
Well, I would just like to end by saying, first, thank you so much for having me on your platform. And to everyone listening, Proverbs 4, verse 25 talks about how we need to keep our eyes fixed forward. And so that's what I challenge you all to do. Just keep, looking forward and focus on Him. He directs your paths. And so, let's see.
Wonderful. Bravo.
Thank you.
Bravo. I'm going to put you in the back room. I'll sign out. Just hold on for a couple of minutes. That was beautiful. That's the best closing of every interview I've ever had. Seriously. God bless you. Hold in the back room, and we'll be right back with you.
Okay.
So G-Force, I'm so grateful for today. I'm so grateful that Phyllis has crossed my path in life. And we never know how we touch people with the smile, the kind words, the music, and just encourage everybody to look first at gratitude, and you'll see the world in a whole different light. With that all said, we are signing out. Next week, we'll be doing some studying out of Rex Sykes' book. And so I appreciate everybody being here. Tag and share this out. You can contact Phyllis and get information about her book through her website, her Instagram, follow her, and her Facebook. So with that all said, everybody have a great day.